Ian from R.T.O here. Welcome to another episode of Picks and Mix, where we woof you around a bit. Today we're in producer mode, mixing it up, and it is a request, and I was asked to do Roger Glover. Now we all know Roger Glover for being in Deep Purple and Rainbow, but he produced some really good albums by some really good bands in his time. He was born in 1945 and he is Welsh. He also writes songs, he produces them and plays a mighty mean bass guitar. And of course he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016 as a member of Deep Purple. But his producing days started, I think he's always been interesting. I knew it's been written that during the early days of Deep Purple, he was always sort of interested, and he was always in the mixing desks, and he finally decided that he wanted to produce stuff. And one of the first things he actually produced was 1971, and it's an album by Rupert Hine and David McIver, and it's called Pick Up a Bone. Now I've heard it. It's quite middle of the road sort of stuff. It's alright, but I wouldn't say I'd go out and buy it. Now the next one he did, which was in 1972, and he had a co-producer here, Mr. Ian Pace. Now I wonder who he's from. And it was Elf. Now Elf is of course Ronnie James Dio's, one of Ronnie's bands, and the reason he produced it because they got to know them. They toured with Deep Purple, and he produced their debut album in 1973. He went and produced an album by one of my favourite bands, Nazareth, and the brilliant Razamanaz, which has got, of course, Razamanaz on it, and the brilliant Bad Boy. I think it's also got, if I can remember off the top of my head, Woke Up This Morning. Then he did this little thing with a load of friends called the Butterfly Ball and Grasshopper's Feast in 1974. Busy year for him, because he went in 1974, he did another Nazareth album. He did Loud and Proud, which has got two great tracks, Turn Up Your Receiver and Joni Mitchell's This Flight Tonight, which is a killer track that they did a great cover of. Also in 1974 he did the next album for Nazareth, Rampant. Great tracks on here, Light My Way and the Shanghai in Shanghai. Love that track. And then in 1974 as well, he produced the second Elf album, Carolina County Ball. Just a great album with lots of blues rock songs on it. And he also produced the last Elf album before Elf became part of Rainbow, 1975's Trying to Burn the Sun. Gone into 1976 and a band called The Straps. Don't know much about these, haven't listened to it. I had a quick listen, they're alright. Got to look more into them. 1976 as well, he produced the debut album for the Ian Gillan Band, Child in Time, which has got a really jazzy version of Child in Time, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool album. Also in 76 he produced this album for the Irish guitarist Rory Gallagher, Calling Card. There's not a bad track on here. We will be doing Rory Gallagher, so I won't say too much about Rory. 1977 he produced an album for Eddie Hardin, You Can't Teach an Old Dog New Tricks. It's not too bad. Then he did another album for Straps. He did Secret Damage, but he was sort of a co-producer on this with Louis Armstrong and Chris Kimsey, who went on to produce Marillion albums. Also in 1977 he turned up and produced Judas Priest's Sin After Sin. Got some great tracks on here, Sinner, and a great cover of the Joan Baez song Diamonds and Rust, and Starbreaker, classics. Another album in 77, he produced the debut album, solo album for David Coverdale, Whitesnake, which had a very early version of Blind Man on, which, my memory stretch, it ended up on the Ready and Willing album. 1978, he decided, I'm going to make my own album, and he did, and it was called Elements, and it's pretty good. 78, he went and did another album for David Coverdale, North Winds, which has got 2 great tracks on it, Keep Giving Me Love and the brilliant Breakdown. Absolutely killer track. 1978 as well, Barbie Benton, never heard of them. Ain't That Just the Way. Joe Breen was another album, More Than Meets the Eyes. Then this great little album by Grand Theft. They're quite good. Have you seen this band? Then of course, at that sort of time, he joined the Rainbow. And the first album he produced for Rainbow was Down to Earth in 1979. Some great tracks on this, of course. All Night Long, Since You've Been Gone, Lost in Hollywood. All great tracks. 1980, so in the 80s he's still busy. He produces Michael Schenker Group's debut album, the Michael Schenker Group, which has got 2 greats on it, of course, Armed and Ready and Into the Arena. Great tracks from Michael. Back to Rainbow duties, and for the Difficult to Cure album, Spotlight Kid, I Surrender, Can't Happen Here. Classic tracks. 1982, another Rainbow album, The Straight Between the Eyes. Some great tracks on here. Death Alley Driver, one of my favourite tracks by Rainbow. Power, Tearing Out My Heart, classic slow track. Then again, more Rainbow, Bent Out of Shape, Street of Dreams, brilliant track. What else is great on there? The version of Snowman is terrific on there as well. Stranded, all good tracks. 1984, he thought, sort of, this was at the time that Deep Purple were reforming, but he made time for this album of his own, Mask, pretty solid tracks on it. We will be doing a ranking of Roger Glover in the near future. But the big news of 1984, of course, was the reformation of Mark II Deep Purple and this absolute killer album. What can you say about this album? Knocking at Your Back Door, Perfect Strangers, Under the Gun, to name just some great tracks. Then he went on and did the second of the reformation, House of the Blue Light. Not as good as Perfect Strangers, but it has got Bad Attitude on it, Strange Ways, pretty cool tracks. Then he did Accidentally on Purpose with Ian Gillan in 1988. Now this is a contractual album. This has got some great tracks on it. Lonely Avenue, which appeared in that film with Dustin Hoffman, and I can't think of the name of the film. Yeah, you know the one. Also, Telephone Box, I Said No. Great little album that was. Then he dropped on with a band, Pretty Maids, called Jump the Gun. Solid stuff. We've talked about them. We've ranked their albums. Not one of the better albums from the band, but it was well produced. Deep Purple in 1990 as well. Slave and Masters. What's on here that's good? King of Dreams, Fire in the Basement. They're pretty good tracks off that album. Then we went into the Battle Rages On in 1993, which he sort of helped with Thom Panzo. Battle Rages On's a good track. Anya, Solitaire, the highlights of that one. Perpendicular was next, which is a Deep Purple album, of course. That's got the brilliant If Sometimes I Feel Like Screaming, Perpendiculars on there. Ted the Mechanic, Abandon came next, 1998. Some great tracks on that one. Snapshot 2002 was one of his albums. Then he helped put together a live album for Dream Theater in 2006. Made in Japan, pretty good album. And then his last thing that he actually produced himself was If Life Was Easy, which is one of his albums, which is a pretty decent album. So there we go. He has worked with some great people. But one of my top 5 favourite albums that Roger has produced. So, coming in at number 5 for me was Sin After Sin, the third album from Judas Priest. As I said, it's got Sinner, Diamonds and Rust, Starbreaker, Raw Deal. It's the only album that Simon Phillips played on. The rest was the usuals: Rob, KK, Glenn and Iain. Absolutely brilliant album. Number 4 for me was Michael Schenker, the debut album. Simon Phillips again was on this. Mo Foster, got Michael Schenker, Gary Barden, Don Airey. So he pulled him in from his Deep Purple and Rainbow. Armed and Ready's on here. A Victim of Illusion, classic. Into Arena, what an album. My number 2, or number 3. It's number 3. My number 3 album is Accidentally on Purpose. The Rain Man, that was the film. I knew it had come to me. Dr. John plays on this album. Iain and Roger play on it. Clouds and Rain is beautiful on this. She Took My Breath Away, I Can't Dance That, Can't Believe, Lonely Avenue, which is wonderful, and I Thought No. It's a great album. Okay, number 2 for me, Loud and Proud, Nazareth. Well, it had to be a Nazareth album in there, isn't there? Dan McCrafferty, Daryl Sweet, Pete Agnell, Manny Charlton. Turn On Your Receiver. The great Little Veep cover, Teenage Nervous Breakdown. Go Down Fighting's on here, This Flight Tonight Again. And then the Ballad of Hollis Brown, the Bob Dylan cover. Great album. But my number 1 album that Roger's done is Perfect Strangers, the album that relaunched Deep Purple. The classic lineup: Gillan, Blackmore, Lord, Glover and Pace. As I said, it's just got some great tracks on here. Knocking on Your Black Door, Under the Gun, Nobody's Home, Mean Street, Perfect Strangers, The Gypsy's Kiss, Wasted Sunset, Hungry Days and Not Responsible. I just remember this album so much. It's still one of my favourite Perps albums. So there we go, Mr. Roger Glover. Great producer, just a great all-round man from a great band. Okay, that's all for today when it comes to doing the videos and shows, etc. But don't forget to join us for live stream, which is getting more popular now since we changed the format. We have guests coming in. We usually get Rob Walker from Let the Music Play pop in. Simon pops in. Even Dave made an appearance last week. So if you want to know what Mastermind Dave looks like, he's actually on tonight, on last week's. We'll be back later doing all the usual stuff. We're going to do a little new feature called Spin the Wheel, which you'll all find out, and all the usual sort of gossip and everything else. So come and join us at 8 PM British Summer Time for 2 hours of mayhem, unscripted nonsense. But if you can't join me for that, I'll be back tomorrow, and we've got a Super Friday for you. Starting off with a live album ranking of Mr. Phil Collins, and we've got a new album. It's from a band from Northampton, Empire and Relentless, that came out last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, sorry. And we've got what we call the nearly new album. This is one we missed out last year in November, and it's a new album from Jean-Michel Jarre. Even Dave missed this one, so we're going to have a look at it tomorrow, and it's called Oxymore. So that's all for tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone. The sun is out. Spring hopefully is here after last night's hailstorm here in Northampton. So have a great day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow or tonight. Bye for now.